Hey there. Peer review, peer critique, sometimes called response. We all know what it looks like when it doesn't go well. When you, as a writer, receive feedback that is the equivalent of a grunt or just a good or a no or a hmm, that's peer review, I'm sure. And a number of you, I'm sure, have used it in a number of different kinds of classes. One of the things that we know about peer critique is that it must be taught in order to do well. Like anything in the world, we have to practice it to get better, and we have to understand what its purposes are. So what I wanted to guide you through here is some things to keep in mind as you are peer reviewing or peer critiquing other people's writing in class. Um, we have experiences in the past, maybe in high school and in college, with peer critique not going well. Let's talk about how we can make it good. Because the best peer critique is one that starts from the premise that writing can always be improved. That is, that the purpose of peer critique is not to reinforce the existing version of the draft by making only tiny suggestions like add an apostrophe or fix this spelling, or only kind of generally positive comments like good or yes, so that the draft stays essentially the same, but meaning disrupting comments that ask the writer to go further than they are right now. What we're really about here is suggesting that sometimes people can be unclear, right? So in different kinds of ways, I think it's important that we keep our eye on the ball and we look for ways not to be destructive, but constructive through questions. You say, what do you mean here? Hey, can you explain this more? I think I might have lost you between point A and point B. And in those kinds of ways, you're engaging in a dialogue with the writer that I hope can then can be used for them to revise in a very strong and forceful manner. So I'm going to guide you through some of the things that I've said in the worksheet, which is linked in week 6, and we'll talk about some of the things that I mean by what I'm saying right here. I'm going to share my screen. So peer review instructions. This is the rhetorical analysis essay. Now you think, okay, well, I've looked at the syllabus and there's no peer critique grade that's attached to this particular assignment. Why the hell should I do it? Well, let me tell you, I am going to list your having done strong and forceful and encouraging and detailed peer critiques as part of one of the criteria I will use to grade your essay. That is, at least 15% of your final grade on this assignment and the next one will come from peer critique. And I need to be able to see your name, your comments in people's rough drafts, first drafts, in order to receive credit. I'm going to figure out some kind of system, some kind of Excel spreadsheet or something like that. It's going to be kind of complicated on my end, but I need to see you as an active peer critiquer in order for you to get this portion of your grade in this assignment. And I'm asking overall that you respond twice to different writers' drafts. What does that mean? You write 2 peer reviews of 2 different writers' drafts. That's not 4 peer critiques. That's 2 peer critiques overall. But I mean, A is going to look at B and C's draft. B is going to look at C and A's draft, and C is going to look at A and B's draft. A great idea could be to put yourselves in small groups with people you know and say, hey, let's work together on each other's drafts, support each other, figure out how we can revise these drafts to be as good as humanly possible. First things first, these links are going to appear as Google Docs in Currents under week 6. Post the link to your first draft here. Check Currents to see these links appear. And the first thing you should know is you are posting your own link as well. Make sure that the sharing settings are set to anyone with the link can comment, or anyone with the link can edit. Read over the assignment prompt once again to familiarize yourself with the draft that we are writing and the kinds of things that I want to make sure that you do. And another thing, going back to step one, then read over what happens at the beginning of the draft. What I'm hoping each writer will do is give me answers to 3 questions. First, what's going well in the draft? What are you really proud of so far? Second, what's not going so well? And maybe where did you run off track? And thirdly, what kinds of feedback would you like from your peer critiquers? Doing these things, these are orienting steps where what you will do is you will read over their commentary. You'll be able to kind of focus yourself on what the writer most wants help with. And then you'll also focus once again on the assignment prompt. Will orient you to what's going on in the draft. Then I just like you to read the whole thing. Don't even comment. Don't do anything. Just read it as a human being reads some text. Just get the feel for it, the flavor of the draft. Then read it a second time. A paper will a paper will not be complete unless it has a central claim or argument related to rhetoric. So I want you to find it and note it in a comment. And maybe it happens at the end of the first paragraph. Maybe it happens at the end of the second paragraph. Maybe it's an implicit claim that happens only by the end of the draft, but I want you to note it somehow. Say, hey, I found your claim, seems strong. Or, hey, I found your claim and I'm not sure it's related to rhetoric or the environment. How can we improve that? Secondly, find and comment on 2 different kinds of textual evidence. First, make sure the author mentions a rhetorical theorist and actually quotes from them sometime early in the paper. I'd recommend this is second paragraph or third paragraph stuff. You say, hey, I'm going to be using Ross Kelly's ideas about ethos in this paper. You notice that Ross Kelly says X, Y, and Z about ethos. What I'm going to be focusing on is that thing applied to this particular environmental issue. Then make sure in the body of the text, the actual paper itself, smack dab in the middle, you're seeing plenty of textual evidence from the text that the writer is selected to work with. You can't make a paper that's rhetorical analysis out of nothing. You have to select the text and say, here's the rhetoric that I'm seeing going on in this text. And you need to be able to quote from it, not just summarize. Summarizing is good overall. Maybe want to like summarize at the very beginning, but quote from the text itself so that we see what's going on and we see your application of that rhetorical term to those words. Finally, and this is probably the biggest part, either in comments in the draft itself or in a big thick paragraph that you'd stick to the end of their draft, I'd like you to respond to some of these questions. And I will say straight off, these are going to be the things that I look for when I read your drafts. First off, what claim or claims is the essay making? How accurately does the essay describe a rhetorical theorist? You're working with Ross Kelly, Scott, or Schiappa. Describe what they are doing and what they want us to pay attention to. How do you use specific evidence? Is it doing well with those things? How is the conclusion of the paper? Does the writer address possible implications? And what kinds of suggestions can you offer? Finally, do you, as the reader, find the argument persuasive overall? Do you think it works? Now, here's the place where you, as a reader, can say things like, I think that you've selected a great text, or, it seems like a perfect text for this assignment. I want to see more textual evidence, or I'm not sure what your claim is, or I'm just not persuaded that there's the thing that's going on that you say is going on is actually going on, right? So in those kinds of ways, you can be the most helpful. Proofreading and clarity we'll leave to the end. If you see any patterns of error going on, that is the apostrophe S problem is just rampant in this draft, or they just refuse to use periods, or this person always misspells a word. Note it, just note it, not a big deal, but note it. We want to make sure that these essays are as clean as possible. Finally, you might just want to say, here's my email address and here's my name. A, for the writer to contact you if they have any other questions, but B, for me, because you may appear as an anonymous comment in some of these drafts. I need to know that you are who you say you are, that whoever it turns out to be, Leah or Namonte or somebody else, Lucas or Victor, is that person, so that I can give you credit for having done this. Then in a separate essay or video, I think what I'll do is cut another video. I will talk about incorporating feedback from peer critiquers into your essay as a writer, not as a peer critiquer, because that will be important for us. The main step that I want to make sure that is apparent to you at this particular stage is that you are going to turn in a first draft this week and a final draft next week. And those are different Google Docs. Why? Because I want to make sure that people get credit for having peer critiqued other people's work. And if those comments disappear, then it's going to be a real pain for me to find and reward people with the work of peer critiquing. So I'm going to stop here. Hoping it's clear. During this week, week 6, you are creating a draft of your paper in Google Docs and sharing it in Google Currents. Then you'll begin the work of looking at other people's drafts and giving them comments on their drafts. I think this is going to go well. I have every confidence in all of you. And if you have any questions about this process, just email me. That is, if you don't know anybody in class and don't know which drafts to click on, then I'll give you a couple. I'll go find a few where no one has peer critiqued that draft yet, and I'll say, go there. I can guide you through this process. I don't want to have to make peer review groups just kind of blind, because I don't know who knows whom in the class. But if you have a concern about getting into somebody else's draft and starting to work with it, then please just hit me up, send me an email. Thank you.